Dr. Minho grabbed his seat as another piece of metal flew past his head. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. The computer kept saying the same thing over and over. Warning! Hull breach detected. Warning, hull breach detected. How bad is it? Minho shouted to Do-Yun, who was trying to fix something under the control panel. Bad, Do-Yun yelled back. We're going down whether we like it or not. Ji-Won was pressed against her window, looking down at the planet below. At least we're heading for the right place, she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. Nari was talking fast into her headset. Base, this is Research Ship 7. We are going down on Kylo 7. Repeat. We are crash landing on Kylo 7. Please send help. But there was only static. Kylo 7 looked terrible from up here. The whole planet was dark red and black. There were no green plants or blue water like Earth, just rocks and dust and things that looked like they might eat you. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Kylo 7. It was called the Death Sphere. No one went there unless they had to, and no one who went there ever wanted to go back. The ship hit the ground hard. Very hard. When Minho woke up, his head hurt. A lot. He could taste blood in his mouth. The ship was quiet now, except for some small fires crackling nearby. Everyone okay? He called out. My arm hurts, but I'm alive, said Do-Yun. I think I broke my nose, said Nari. I'm fine, said Ji-Won. But we have a big problem. She was right. Through the broken window, they could see Kylo 7. It was even worse up close. The ground was covered in sharp, black rocks. The sky was dark orange, like a bad sunset that never ended. And in the distance, they could see things moving, big things. How long until rescue? Asked Minho. Nari checked her equipment. Most of it was broken. The emergency beacon is damaged. It might take days to fix, maybe weeks. We don't have weeks, said Do-Yun. He was looking at the ship's systems. Life support is dying. Food and water for maybe 3 days. 4 if we're careful. Then we need to get outside and find supplies, said Minho. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy. Outside, said Nari. This is Kylo 7, the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. The home of the Shadow Maws. Everyone knew about Shadow Maws. They were the worst predators in space. Bigger than Earth's biggest whales. Faster than Earth's fastest cats. Stronger than anything humans had ever seen. They had crystal scales that could stop laser guns. They had claws that could cut through spaceship walls. And they had a scream that could make you so scared you couldn't move. The Galactic Council said Shadow Maws were impossible to fight. They said Shadow Maws were impossible to escape from. They said if you ever saw a Shadow Maw, you were already dead. We don't have a choice, said Minho. We stay here. We die slow. We go out there. Maybe we die fast, but maybe we live. They spent an hour getting ready. They took all the medical supplies. They took all the food they could carry. They took tools and weapons, though everyone knew weapons didn't work on Shadow Ma WS. Ji-Won brought her camera and her notebook. She was a scientist who studied alien animals. Even here, even now, she wanted to learn. If we're going to die, she said, at least we can learn something first. The door of the ship opened with a loud hiss. Hot air rushed in. It smelled like metal and something rotten. They stepped outside. Kylo 7 was quiet. Too quiet. On Earth, there were always sounds, birds singing, wind blowing through trees, cars driving on roads. Here, there was nothing. Just silence, and then they heard it. A sound like thunder, but deeper. A sound like a mountain falling down. A sound that made their bones shake and their hearts beat faster. Was that? Whispered Nari. Yeah, said Do-Yun. That was a Shadow Maw. How far away? Asked Minho. Ji-Won was looking at her instruments. Hard to tell. Sound travels different here. Could be very far, could be very close. They walked for 2 hours. The ground was hard and sharp under their feet. Sometimes they had to climb over big rocks. Sometimes they had to walk around deep holes in the ground. And then they saw it. The Shadow Maw was lying behind a group of rocks. At first they thought it was dead. It wasn't moving. It wasn't making noise, but then they saw its side going up and down. It was breathing. Back away, whispered Minho. Slow, don't run, don't make noise. But Jiwon wasn't backing away. She was moving closer. Jiwon, hissed Do-yeon. What are you doing? Look at it, she said softly. Really look at it. Minho looked. The shadow maw was huge. Maybe 30 feet long. Its scales were black and purple, and they shined in the orange light like broken glass. Its claws were as long as baseball bats, but something was wrong with it. It's hurt, said Jiwon. Look at its back leg. And there, on its side, those are wounds. Bad ones. She was right. The shadow maw had deep cuts on its leg and side. They were red and swollen. They looked infected. So, said Nari. It's hurt. That makes it more dangerous, not less dangerous. Maybe, said Jiwon. Or maybe it makes it scared. Look at how it's lying. It's not in an attack position. It's in a protection position. Like it's trying to hide. The shadow maw opened one eye. It was yellow like the sun, but darker. It looked at them for a long moment, then it made a sound. Not the terrible roar they expected, a softer sound. Almost like a question. It's not attacking, whispered Minho. It's probably too weak to attack, said Do-yeon. We should go, now. But Jiwon was opening her medical bag. What are you doing? Asked Nari. It's hurt, said Jiwon, and we're doctors. Well, Minho and I are doctors. We help things that are hurt. It's not a thing, said Do-yeon. It's a shadow maw. It's a monster. Look at its eyes, said Jiwon. Really look. Minho looked. The shadow maw's eyes were intelligent. Not like an animal's eyes, like a person's eyes. There was thinking behind them. There was feeling behind them, and there was pain. The infection is bad, said Jiwon. She was only 10 feet away from the creature now. If we don't help, it will. Die. Good, said Do-yeon. Less things trying to kill us. But the shadow maw wasn't trying to kill them. It was just watching. When Jiwon moved closer, it moved its head back a little. But it didn't attack. It didn't even growl. I'm going to try something, said Jiwon. She took out a bottle of antiseptic and some bandages. If it attacks me, run? Jiwon, no, said Minho, but she was already moving, slowly, carefully, like she was approaching a scared dog. Instead of the galaxy's most dangerous predator, the shadow maw watched her come. Its yellow eyes followed her every move. When she was close enough to touch it, she stopped. Hey there, big guy, she said softly. I'm going to help you. Try not to eat me, okay? She reached out with the antiseptic. The shadow maw flinched when it touched the wound, but it didn't move away. It didn't attack. It let her clean the infection. For 20 minutes, Jiwon worked on the creature's wounds. The shadow maw lay still the whole time. Sometimes it made small sounds like it was talking to her, soft sounds. Gentle sounds, not the sounds of a monster. When she was done, she stepped back. The shadow maw lifted its big head and looked at the bandages on its leg and side. Then it looked at Jiwon, and it made a sound that almost seemed like, thank you. We should go, said Minho, but he was smiling a little dot as they walked away. Nari dropped her lunch pack. She didn't notice until they were far from the shadow maw. I have to go back and get it, she said. That's half our food. When they returned, the food pack was gone. But in its place was something else, a piece of crystal. Beautiful and clear. It was shaped like a flower. Did it leave us a gift? Asked Nari. They looked back at the shadow maw. It was still lying in the same place, but now it was watching them. And if Minho didn't know better, he would have said it looked like it was smiling. I think, said Jiwon, we just made first contact. And it went better than anyone expected. The rescue ship looked like a flying city when it came down from the sky. It was huge and gray and covered with weapons. Way too many weapons for a simple rescue mission. Admiral Kyung was the first person to step out. He was tall and serious, with scars on his face and hands. Behind him came Dr. Yoonji, a woman with white hair and cold eyes. She carried a big gun and looked like she knew how to use it. Where are the survivors? Asked Kyung. His voice was hard like metal. We're here, called Minho. He walked toward them with his hands up to show he was peaceful, but Kyung wasn't looking at Minho. He was looking behind him, where a big guy and lady were sitting. The two Shadow Maws had moved closer when the ship arrived, like they were worried about their human friends. "Get down!" shouted Kyung. "Shadow Maws! Everyone get down!" Soldiers poured out of the rescue ship. They all had big guns. All the guns were pointed at Big Guy and Lady. "Wait!" yelled Minho. "Don't shoot! They're friendly!" "Friendly?" said Dr. Yunji. She looked at Minho like he was crazy. "They're Shadow Maws. They don't do friendly." "They do. Killing." "No, you don't understand," said Jiwon. She ran between the soldiers and the Shadow Maws. "We've been living with them for a week. They saved our lives. They're intelligent. They can communicate." "Stand aside, Doctor," said Kyung. "You've been on this planet too long. The Shadow Maws have done something to your mind." "Nothing happened to our minds," said Nari. "Look at them. Really look at them." Big Guy was making worried sounds. He could see all the guns pointed at him, but he wasn't getting ready to fight. He was getting ready to protect the humans. Lady moved closer to him, but she was also watching the humans with concern. "See?" said Do-yeon. "They're not attacking. They're scared. They're scared for us." "Shadow Maws feel fear," said Dr. Yunji, "but only when they're getting ready to kill. It makes them more dangerous." "That's not true," said Jiwon. "We've been studying them. They're social creatures. They live in family groups. They take care of each other." "Impossible," said Kyung. "I've fought Shadow Maws for 20 years. I've seen what they do to planets. To people, they're monsters." "Maybe," said Minho carefully, "you only saw them when they were scared. When they were defending themselves." Kyung's face got red. "Defending themselves? They destroyed 3 colonies. They killed thousands of people. Did anyone try to talk to them first?" asked Nari. "Did anyone try to understand them?" "Talk to them?" Dr. Yunji laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You can't talk to animals." "Yes, you can," said Nari. "Watch." She walked toward Big Guy. All the soldiers raised their guns higher. "Nari, don't," said Kyung. "It will kill you." But Nari kept walking. When she got close to Big Guy, she made one of the sounds he had taught her, a soft, rumbling sound that meant friend. Big Guy's eyes lit up. He made the same sound back, but gentler. Then Nari did something that made all the soldiers gasp. She reached out and touched Big Guy's nose. Big Guy closed his eyes and made a happy purring sound. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Yunji. "Not impossible," said Jiwon. "Just misunderstood." That's when the real trouble started. The ground began to shake. At first, everyone thought it was an earthquake. But then they heard the clicking sounds. Bone reapers, lots of them. "What are those?" asked Kyung. "The real monsters," said Minho. "The bone reapers came from underground. They were worse than the venom crawlers, much worse. They looked like walking skeletons, but made of metal and acid. They were fast and smart and very, very hungry. There were at least 20 of them. Maybe more." The soldiers started shooting, but their guns barely hurt the bone reapers. The creatures kept coming. "Fall back to the ship," ordered Kyung, but they couldn't reach the ship. The bone reapers had surrounded them. That's when Big Guy roared. It wasn't the terrible scream that the galaxy feared. It was a battle cry. "A call to family." Lady answered first. Then Blue and Green came running from the rocks where they had been hiding. But they weren't alone. 6 more Shadow Maws appeared. Then 8 more. Then 12 more, a whole pack of Shadow Maws, all coming to help their human friends. The battle was incredible. The Shadow Maws didn't just fight the Bone Reapers. They worked together like a team. Big Guy and 3 others formed a circle around the humans and soldiers. Lady and 4 others attacked the Bone Reapers from the sides. The rest made sure no more creatures could come up from underground. But the most amazing thing was how they fought. They didn't just use claws and teeth. They used tactics. They used tools. They picked up rocks and threw them with perfect aim. They worked together to trap the Bone Reapers in corners where they couldn't escape, and they protected the humans. When a Bone Reaper got close to Dr. Yunji, Green jumped in front of it and took a hit that was meant for her. When soldiers ran out of ammunition, Blue brought them rocks to throw. The battle lasted for 20 minutes. When it was over, all the Bone Reapers were dead or had run away. The Shadow Moths had won, but Green was hurt. The hit he took for Dr. Yunji had left a deep cut on his side. Without thinking, Dr. Yunji ran to Green with her medical bag. "Hold still," she told him. "I'm going to help you." Green looked at her with his big yellow eyes. Then he lay down and let her work on his wound. As Dr. Yunji cleaned and bandaged the cut, Green made soft sounds, like he was thanking her. He saved me," she said quietly. "Why did he save me?" "I was going to let them shoot him." "Because that's what families do," said Jiwan. "They protect each other." Admiral Kyung looked around at all the Shadow Moths. They were checking on each other, making sure everyone was okay. Some were bringing water to the wounded. Others were cleaning up the battlefield. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "Everything we know about them ... is wrong," finished Minho. "Everything the galaxy knows about Shadow Moths is wrong." Big Guy walked over to Admiral Kyung. The Admiral reached for his gun, but Big Guy just sat down in front of him. Then Big Guy did something no one expected. He bowed his head. It was clearly a gesture of respect. "Maybe even friendship. What does he want?" asked Kyung. "I think," said Nari, "he wants to be friends." Admiral Kyung looked at Big Guy for a long time. Then he slowly reached out his hand. Big Guy sniffed it carefully. Then he gently touched it with his nose. "My God," whispered Kyung, "what have we done? All these years, all those battles? We were fighting people, not monsters." Dr. Yunji finished bandaging Green's wound. The big Shadow Maw licked her hand gently, like a dog, saying, "Thank you." "We need to contact the Galactic Council," said Kyung. "We need to tell them everything. Will they believe us?" asked Du Hyan. Kyung looked around at the Shadow Moths, who were now sitting peacefully around the humans and soldiers. Some were sharing food. Others were trying to communicate with the soldiers using simple sounds. "They have to," said Kyung. "Because if they don't, we're going to make the biggest mistake in galactic history." That night, as they waited for the council's response, something wonderful happened. The Shadow Moths sang. It started with Lady making a low, musical sound. Then Big Guy joined in. Then all the others. It was the most beautiful thing any of the humans had ever heard. Like whale songs, but richer, more complex, full of meaning and emotion. "It's not just singing," said Nari, who was recording everything. "It's language, complex language." "What are they saying?" asked Dr. Yunji. Nari listened carefully. I think they're telling stories about their families, about their lives, about us." "About us?" said Kyung. "About the day the strange, small creatures fell from the sky and became part of their pack." As the song continued, more Shadow Moths appeared from the darkness. The pack was growing. Soon there were 30 of them, all singing together. "We're not just witnesses to first contact," said Minho. "We're part of it. We're part of their history now." "And they're part of ours," said Jiwan. The song went on for hours, telling the story of two species learning to understand each other. It was a song of friendship, of family, of hope for the future. But tomorrow the Galactic Council would arrive, and then they would find out if that future was possible. The Galactic Council's ship was even bigger than Admiral Kyung's rescue ship. It looked like a small moon floating in the orange sky of Kylos 7. Ships from 12 different worlds were attached to it. Everyone important in the galaxy was here. "They brought an army," said Do-Yun, looking through the binoculars. "They brought exterminators," said Admiral Kyung. His voice was grim. "The Council doesn't want to study the Shadow Moths. They want to kill them all." Dr. Yunji was sitting next to Green, who was still healing from his wound. The big Shadow Maw had his head resting on her lap like a giant cat. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 hours, said Kyung. "Then they start the bombing." 6 hours to prove that Shadow Moths aren't monsters, said Minho. 6 hours to save an entire species. The Shadow Maw pack had gathered around the landing site. There were over 100 of them now. Word had spread somehow, and Shadow Moths from all over the planet were coming, but they weren't coming to fight. They were coming to meet the humans. "Look at them," said Jiwan. She was watching through her camera. "They're not aggressive. They're curious. It was true. The shadow moths were sitting in groups, talking to each other in their musical language. Some were bringing gifts, crystals, rare stones, beautiful flowers that only grew in the deepest caves, young. Shadow moths were playing together, chasing each other around the rocks. Older ones were grooming each other, cleaning wounds and sharing food. It's a community, said Nari, a civilization. The council delegates finally came down in small ships. There were Altarians with their blue skin and silver eyes, Zenthari with their tall, thin bodies and large heads. Representatives from a dozen other worlds. Leading them was High Commander Vex, an Altarian who had lost his home planet to what he believed was a Shadow Maw attack. Where are the survivors? He demanded as soon as he stepped off his ship. We're all here, said Minho. Vex looked around and saw the Shadow Maws. His blue skin turned darker with anger. Why are those creatures still alive? He asked Kyung. Why haven't you eliminated the threat? Because they're not a threat, said Dr. Yunji. They're people? Vex laughed, but it was a cold sound. They destroyed my world. They killed everyone I loved. They are monsters and they must die. What if you're wrong? Asked Jiwan. What if they weren't attacking your world? What if they were trying to help? Help? Vex's eyes flashed with fury. You think they were helping when they tore apart our cities? Maybe, said Nari carefully. They were trying to save your cities from something else. Dr. Yunji stepped forward. She had been studying all the old reports about Shadow Maw attacks. I've been looking at the data, she said. Every single Shadow Maw attack happened during their mating season. That's when they're most protective of their territory. So, said Vex. So what if they weren't attacking? What if they were warning you? What if something else was threatening your colonies and the Shadow Maws were trying to help? That's impossible, said Commander Zahn as Zenthari. Delegate, our sensors detected no other threats. Your sensors might not detect threats that Shadow Maws can sense, said Jiwan. They might see or hear or smell things that your technology can't find. Big Guy had been listening to the conversation. Now he walked forward slowly, carefully. He stopped about 10 feet from the delegates and sat down. Then he started to speak, not in human language, of course. But he made sounds, complex, organized sounds. Different tones and rhythms. It was clearly communication. What is it doing? Asked Vex. He's trying to tell you something, said Nari. He's trying to explain. Nari walked over to Big Guy. They had been practicing communication for days now. She was getting better at understanding him. Big Guy made a series of sounds. Low ones, then high ones, then a pattern that repeated 3 times. I think he's talking about your planet, said Nari. About what really happened there. She made some sounds back. Big Guy's eyes lit up. He made more sounds, more complex ones. He says there were underground creatures. Things that were eating your planet from below. The Shadow Maws tried to warn you, but you attacked them instead. Lies? Said Vex. It's just making noise. But Dr. Yunji was thinking, what if it's not lies? What if we never understood what they were trying to tell us? She pulled out her research pad and showed them the data. Look at this. Every Shadow Maw attack was followed by seismic activity, underground collapses. Something was definitely happening. Below the surface. Coincidence, said Commander Zahn. Maybe the Shadow Maws were trying to show you where the real danger was. Lady approached the group now. She had something in her mouth, a piece of stone, covered with strange markings. She dropped it at Dr. Yunji's feet and made soft sounds. What is this? Asked Dr. EUNG.G1 examined the stone. It looks like a map. See these lines? They could be tunnel systems. Tunnel systems from where? Asked Kyung. Big Guy made more sounds. He pointed to the stone, then to the sky, then made a digging motion with his claws. I think he's saying the creatures came from space, said Nari. They landed and dug underground. The devourer of worms, whispered Commander Zahn. We've been tracking them for years, but we never knew where they would strike next. What are devourer worms? Asked Minho. Parasites from deep space. They burrow into planets and eat them from the inside. We've lost 6 worlds to them in the last century. Dr. Yunji was studying the stone map more carefully. If this is accurate, then the Shadow Maws have been fighting the Devourer Vorms for generations. They've been protecting planets, not destroying them. That's not possible, said Vex, but his voice was less certain now. Lady made more sounds. She pointed to different parts of the stone map, then made sounds like explosions. She's showing us battles, said Nari. Places where they fought the Vorms and won. Big Guy brought another stone. This one had different markings. It looked like a star map. They've been tracking the Vorms across the galaxy, said Juwan. They've been following them from planet to planet, trying to stop them. But why didn't they tell us? Asked Vex. They tried, said Dr. Yunji, but we attacked them before they could explain. The truth was starting to become clear. For hundreds of years, Shadow Maws had been fighting a secret war against creatures that were destroying planets. They had tried to warn other species, but no one understood their language. No one tried to communicate with them. Instead, every species in the galaxy saw them as monsters and attacked them on sight. We've been fighting the wrong enemy, said Commander Zahn quietly. More Shadow Maws were coming forward now. They all carried stones with maps and star charts. Information about Devourer Worm movements, battle plans, strategies that had taken centuries to develop. They want to share their knowledge, said Nari. They want to work together. This changes everything, said Admiral Kyung. If this is true, then the Shadow Maws aren't our enemies. They're our allies. They've been our allies all along. High Commander Vex was staring at the stone maps. His blue skin had turned pale. My planet, he said slowly. They were trying to save my planet. And when you attacked them, said Dr. Yunji, gently, they couldn't complete their mission. The Devourer Vorms won. Vex sat down heavily on a rock. We caused our own destruction. We killed the ones who were trying to help us. Big Guy approached Vex carefully. The Shadow Maw looked at the broken alien commander for a long moment, then Big Guy did something incredible. He reached out with one massive paw and gently touched Vex's shoulder. It was a gesture of comfort. Of forgiveness. Vex looked up at Big Guy's yellow eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Big Guy made a soft sound. A sound that clearly meant, I understand. We need to call off the bombing, said Admiral Kyung. More than that, said Commander Zahn. We need to form an alliance. The Devourer Vorms are still out there. And now we know who's been fighting them all this time. As the orange suns set on Kalos 7, humans and aliens and Shadow Maws sat together around small fires. They were sharing food, sharing stories, sharing knowledge. For the first time in galactic history, 2 species were truly communicating. What happens now? Asked Juwan. Now, said Dr. Yunji, we learn from each other. We fight together. We protect the galaxy together. Big Guy was teaching Commander Zahn how to read the stone maps. Lady was showing High Commander Vex which stars were most likely to be attacked next. It's beautiful, said Nari. After all these years of fighting, we're finally working together. The galaxy is about to change, said Minho. And it's all because a few humans decided to help an injured creature instead of running away from it. In the distance, more Shadow Maws were singing their complex songs. But now they weren't just singing about the past. They were singing about the future. 1 month later, the galaxy looked different. The news had spread to every world, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. The Shadow Maws weren't monsters. They were heroes who had been fighting to save planets for hundreds of years. But not everyone believed it. Dr. Minho stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, looking out at thousands of delegates from across the galaxy. Some looked curious, some looked angry, some looked scared. The evidence is clear, he said into the microphone. Shadow Maws are intelligent, peaceful creatures who have been protecting our galaxy from the Devourer Vorms. Evidence can be faked, shouted someone from the crowd. How do we know you weren't brainwashed? Because we're still alive, said Dr. Jawan, who was standing next to him. If Shadow Maws were really killers, we would be dead. Maybe they kept you alive to use you, said another voice. Maybe this is all part of their plan. Minho sighed. Even with all the proof they had brought, some people still didn't want to believe the truth. That's when the doors to the hall opened. Big Guy walked in. The hall erupted in screams and panic. Delegates jumped on their chairs, reached for weapons, tried to run to the exits, but Big Guy just walked calmly to the center of the hall and sat down. He looked around at all the frightened faces with his intelligent yellow eyes. Then he spoke, not in human language, but in the universal translator that Dr. Neri had built. Her machine could turn Shadow Maw sounds into words that everyone could understand. People of the galaxy, Big Guy's voice came through the speakers. It was deep and warm, like a grandfather telling stories. I'm sorry you are afraid of me. I am sorry my people have been misunderstood for so long. The hall slowly went quiet. Everyone was staring at the massive creature who was speaking to them like a person. We never wanted to fight you, Big Guy continued. We only wanted to protect you, to protect your worlds from the creatures that eat planets from below. Lies, someone shouted, but their voice was shaky. Big Guy turned toward the voice. You are from Kepler-9, yes? Your world was attacked 3 years ago. You blame my people. The delegate from Kepler-9 stood up. His hands were shaking. Your kind destroyed our cities, killed thousands of our people. No, said Big Guy sadly. The Devourer of Worms destroyed your cities. We tried to stop them. We tried to warn you. But you shot at us instead of listening. Big Guy activated a holographic projector that Dr. Nari had given him. Images filled the air above the hall. They showed the battle for Kepler-9. From the Shadow Maw's perspective, the delegates watched in silence as they saw Shadow Maws digging into the ground, pulling out writhing, horrible worm creatures they saw. Shadow Maws trying to communicate with human soldiers only to be shot at. They saw Shadow Maws dying while trying to protect human children from the real monsters. We failed to save your world, said Big Guy. And I'm sorry, but we never stopped trying. The delegate from Kepler-9 sat down hard. His face was white with shock. This is real, he whispered. It is real, said Lady, who had entered the hall behind Big Guy. All of it is real. More. Shadow Maws were coming into the hall now. Not many, just a few. But each one carried something. They carried the bodies of Devourer of Worms. The creatures were hideous. Long and slimy, with dozens of mouths full of razor teeth. Just looking at them made the delegates feel sick. These are what we fight, said Big Guy. These are what eat your planets. We have been hunting them across the galaxy for 1,000 years. But why? Asked High Commander Vex, who had become one of the strongest supporters of the Shadow Maws. Why do you fight for us when we've always attacked you? Big Guy was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made everyone in the hall go silent, because all life is precious, because your children deserve to grow up safe, because the galaxy is big enough for all of us to live in peace. An old delegate from the Centauri system stood up slowly. If this is true, then we owe you a debt we can never repay. We do not want payment, said Lady. We want partnership. The Devourer of Worms are getting stronger. We cannot fight them alone anymore. What do you need from us? Asked the delegate. Share your knowledge, said Big Guy. Share your technology. Help us find the Worms before they destroy more worlds. Dr. Yunji stepped forward. She had been working with the Shadow Maws for weeks, learning their science and sharing human knowledge. They have technology we never imagined, she said. They can sense Devourer Worms from light years away. They know how to track them through subspace. They understand the Worm's life cycle better than any of us. And in return? Asked Commander Zahn. In return, we teach them about our star maps, our communication systems, our weapons technology, said Dr. Yunji. Together, we can build a defense network that covers the entire galaxy. A joint military force, said Admiral Kyung. Humans, aliens, and Shadow Maws working together. The Galactic Defense Alliance, said Minho. The vote was close. Very close. But in the end, hope won over fear. The Galactic Council voted to form an alliance with the Shadow Maws. 6 months later, the first joint human Shadow Maw ship launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. It was called the Friendship, and it was the most advanced vessel ever built. Dr. Minho was its captain. Big Guy was its chief science officer. They had matching uniforms, though Big Guy's was much bigger. Ready for our first mission? Asked Minho as they approached the edge of the solar system. Ready, said Big Guy. The sensors are detecting devourer worm activity near the Alpha Centauri system. We can be there in 2 days. Then let's go save a planet, said Dr. Jawan from her station. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Minho looked around the bridge. Half the crew was human, half was Shadow Maw. They were all working together, sharing knowledge, protecting the galaxy. You know what the best part is? Said Dr. Nari, who was monitoring communications. What? Asked Minho. 3 more species have asked to join the Alliance. The Draconians, the Aquilans, and the Helix Collective. They all want to learn how to communicate with species they thought were enemies. The galaxy is getting bigger, said Dr. Doyun. No, said Lady, who was piloting the ship. The galaxy is getting closer together. 2 years later, the devourer worm threat was finally contained. The joint forces of dozens of species had tracked down the Vorm's home dimension and sealed it off permanently. The galaxy was safe. Dr. Minho returned to Kylo 7 for a celebration. The planet had been transformed into a meeting place for dozens of species. Where once there had been only rocks and danger, now there were cities and schools and research centers. Human children played with young Shadow Maws in the gardens. Alien scientists worked alongside Shadow Maw researchers in the laboratories. Artists from a dozen worlds created beautiful sculptures together. It's perfect, said Dr. Jawan, who was now the director of the Interspecies Communication Institute. Not perfect, said Big Guy, who was sitting nearby with his and Lady's cubs. But better, much better. What's next? Asked Dr. Neri. Next we explore, said Lady. We've learned that there are other galaxies out there. Other species who might need our help. Other species who might teach us new things, added Big Guy. The Intergalactic Alliance? Suggested Dr. Yunji. Why not? Said Admiral Kyung. We've come this far. As the celebration continued around them, Minho looked up at the stars. Each one represented a world that was now safe because humans had decided to help instead of hurt. Because they had chosen to understand instead of fear. You know what I learned from all this? Said Dr. Doyun. What? Asked the others. The most dangerous thing in the galaxy isn't a monster with claws and teeth. It's fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what we don't understand. And the most powerful thing? Asked Dr. Neri. Friendship, said Big Guy, nuzzling one of his cubs. The willingness to reach out to someone different and say, hello, I want to be your friend. That's very human of you, said Dr. Jawan, smiling. And very Shadow Maw of you, Big Guy replied, to help someone who needs it. The party went on all night, with humans and Shadow Maws and dozens of other species sharing food and stories and laughter under the stars, and in the distance, more ships were arriving, more species who had heard about the Great Alliance, more friends who wanted to join the growing family of the galaxy. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and none of them had to face it alone. The author's note. This story shows that sometimes the greatest strength isn't the ability to fight, but the ability to understand. The humans in this story succeeded not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they were willing to see beyond their fear and offer help to someone in need. In doing so, they didn't just save themselves, they saved the entire galaxy. 3 days had passed since they helped the Shadow Maw. 3 days of living in their broken ship, eating small amounts of food, and trying to fix their emergency beacon. But something strange was happening. It's following us, said Doyun. He was looking through the ship's cracked window with binoculars. What's following us? Asked Minho. Big Guy, the Shadow Maw we helped. Every time we go outside, I see him. He stays far away, but he's always there. Ji-Wan looked up from her notes. She had been writing down everything about their first meeting with the Shadow Maw. How far away? Maybe 200 meters, sometimes closer, but he never comes near us. Nari was working on the beacon. Wires and computer parts were spread all around her. Maybe he's hunting us. Following us until we're weak enough to eat. I don't think so, said Jiwan. His behavior doesn't match hunting patterns. What do you mean? Asked Minho. One showed them her notebook. It was full of drawings and notes. I've been watching him through the window. When he thinks we're not looking, he comes closer, but not like a predator, like ... like he's checking on us. Checking on us? Said Do-young. It's a giant monster with claws. Look at this, said Jiwan. She had drawn pictures of the Shadow Maw in different positions. When he's watching us, his head is up, his tail is relaxed. His claws are pulled. And this is not aggressive body language? Then what is it? Asked Neri. I think, said Jiwan slowly, he's protecting us. Everyone stared at her. Protecting us from what? Asked Minho. From everything else on this planet. That afternoon, they had to go outside to look for water. Their water was almost gone, and they needed to find more, or they would die. The nearest water source was about a mile away, near some tall rock formations. It was dangerous to go there, but they had no choice. As they walked, Do-young kept looking behind them. He's still there, he whispered. Big guy? Asked Jiwan. Yeah, about 50 meters back now, just following. When they reached the water source, it was better than they hoped. Clear, clean water flowed from a crack in the rocks. They filled all their containers and drank as much as they could. That's when they heard the sound, a clicking noise, like bones hitting together, but much louder. What was that? Whispered Nari. The clicking got louder. And closer. Then they saw them. 5 creatures came out from behind the rocks. They looked like giant spiders, but worse. Much worse. They had acid dripping from their mouths. Their legs were sharp like knives. Their eyes were black and hungry. Venom. Crawlers, breathed Minho. He had read about them in the planet reports. They were almost as dangerous as shadow maws. The crawlers spread out, trying to surround the humans. There was nowhere to run. The humans had small guns, but everyone knew guns didn't work well on Kylo 7 predators. Stay together, said Minho. Back to back. The biggest crawler moved forward. Acid dripped from its mouth and made holes in the ground. It was getting ready to attack. Then the ground shook. Big guy appeared from behind the rocks like a living mountain. He was moving fast, faster than anything that size should be able to move. But he wasn't running at the humans. He was running at the crawlers. The Shadow Maw didn't attack the crawlers with claws or teeth. Instead, he put himself between them and the humans. He spread his arms wide and made a deep rumbling sound. The crawlers stopped. They looked at Big Guy, then at each other. Big Guy made the rumbling sound again. Louder this time. It wasn't angry or threatening. It was more like he was talking to them. The biggest crawler clicked its bones together. Big Guy rumbled back. For a minute, the 2 predators just looked at each other. The humans watched. Afraid to move, then the crawlers backed away. Slowly, they didn't run, but they left. Big Guy waited until they were completely gone. Then he turned to look at the humans. His yellow eyes seemed to be asking, Are you okay? Did that just happen? Whispered Nari. He saved us, said Do-young. The Shadow Maw saved us. Big Guy made a softer sound, almost like a cat purring, but much deeper. Then he walked to the water source and drank. But he kept one eye on the humans the whole time. When he was done drinking, he walked to a different part of the rocks. He pushed some stones aside with his claws. Underneath was another water source. This one was even cleaner than the first. He looked at the humans and made a small sound, like he was saying, This water is better. He's showing us the good water, said Jiwan. Her voice was full of wonder. Big Guy made the purring sound again. Then he moved away, but not far. Just far enough to give them space. That night, back in their ship, they talked about what had happened. It doesn't make sense, said Do-young. Everything we know about Shadow Maws says they're killing machines. Maybe everything we know is wrong, said Jiwan. Or maybe this one is different, said Nari. I don't think he's different, said Minho. I think we're seeing him differently. The next morning they woke up to voices outside their ship, but not human. Voices, they looked out the window and saw something impossible. Big Guy was there. But he wasn't alone. 3 other shadow maws were with him. One was smaller than Big Guy, with silver scales mixed in with the black ones. The other 2 were about the same size as Big Guy, but their scales were different colors. One was dark blue. One was deep green. A pack, whispered Jiwon. He brought his pack. The 4 shadow maws were arranged in a circle around the crashed ship. Not threatening, just ... watching, protecting. Big Guy saw them at the window. He made a soft rumbling sound. The other shadow maws looked at the humans too. The silver one, who was definitely female, made a different sound, higher pitched. Almost musical. She's beautiful, said Nari. Let's call her Lady, said Jiwon. Lady walked closer to the ship. She had something in her mouth. She put it down near the door and backed away. It was food. Some kind of fruit that grew on Kylo 7. The humans had seen it before, but didn't know if it was safe to eat. Lady made the musical sound again. Then she picked up one of the fruits and ate it. She was showing them it was safe. They're taking care of us, said Minho. A pack of shadow maws is taking care of us. Over the next few hours, they watched the pack work together. Big Guy and the blue one, who they named Blue, went hunting. Lady and the green one, Green, stayed near the ship when Big Guy and Blue came. Back, they brought more food. Not just fruits, but also some kind of meat that smelled good when cooked. Lady showed them which plants were safe and which were dangerous. She would touch the safe ones with her nose, then make a happy sound. For the dangerous ones, she would push them away and make a warning sound. Green found more water sources, better ones. He seemed to know where all the clean water was hidden. They're teaching us, said Jiwon. They're teaching us how to survive on their planet. That evening, as the orange sun was setting, something amazing happened. Big Guy approached the ship. He sat down about 10 feet away and just looked at them through the window. Then he started making sounds. Different sounds, some low, some high, some short, some long. He's trying to talk to us, said Nari. She opened the ship's door carefully. Big Guy didn't move, but his eyes followed her. Nari made a sound back. Just a simple hello sound. Big Guy's eyes got brighter. He made another sound. Nari tried to copy it. Big Guy made a sound that could only be described as happy for the next hour. Nari and Big Guy had a conversation. Neither understood what the other was saying, but they were definitely communicating. Lady joined in. Then Blue, then Green. Soon all 4 shadow maws were making different sounds, and Nari was trying to copy them. Sometimes she got it right, and they would make happy sounds. Sometimes she got it wrong, and they would gently correct her. This is incredible, said Minho. We're having first contact. Real first contact. The beacon, said Do-Yun suddenly. I fixed the beacon today. The rescue signal is working. Everyone looked at him. How long until they get here? Asked Jiwon. 2 days, maybe 3. They all looked back at the shadow maws. Big Guy was still trying to teach Nari new sounds. Lady was bringing them more food. Blue and Green were checking the area for dangers. What are we going to tell them? Asked Nari. How do we explain this? We tell them the truth, said Minho. We tell them that everything the galaxy thinks about shadow maws is wrong. Will they believe us? Asked Jiwon. Outside, Big Guy made a low, comfortable sound, like he was saying goodnight. They have to, said Minho. Because if they don't believe us, they might try to hurt our pack. Our pack? Said Do-Yun. Minho looked out at the 4 shadow maws settling down for the night around their ship, protecting them. Caring for them, yeah, he said. Our pack.